Hey guys, it's Brandon. I'm going to do a video tonight, post-game analysis video on a 5-minute game I played earlier. I did something a little bit different with this game than I usually do. Sort of a little bit of a positional player and really going for the king and attacking. Just going in with all guns blazing is not really something that I had much experience with, and not something that I have too much confidence in. But I decided that I was going to just go into this game and do it, and come what may, and I just decided to see what happens. So I was white here, and I played f4, getting into the polar bear system. At least I was hoping to. d5, this is standard response. Knight f3, knight c6, g3, this is all standard. This is a little bit of a deviation. Actually, as the system is sort of developed by Danielson, if there's an early knight c6, he usually plays e3 and then bishop b5, hoping to get some double pawn, and then play against the weakness of that double pawn, and then fink out of the bishop and such over here later. But I decided not to do that. e6 is a little bit strange. I guess it's a bit of a French defense setup. Not used to playing that against the polar bear. So just some basic development going on here. Knight f6. This polar bear is a bit of a slow system, so reverse Leningrad Dutch almost. You sort of have to develop your pieces slowly. So c3, d3, looking to get in e4 as soon as possible, but he decides to play e5 to sort of open up his game. And I'm always willing to trade an f pawn for an e pawn as much as possible. So knight takes, just developing a piece. It's sometimes tough to get this dark square bishop developed in the polar bear. It's if you play the c3, d3 lines instead of e3, b3, and bishop b2 lines. But actually, so he decides to swap off knights. So I have two decent bishops. I have pressure on this d5 pawn. I could here. Oh, actually, he is defending it now with that move, and he's trying to get out of the pin, and also defending that pawn. Just some development here. Knight d2. This this move I didn't really expect. Trying to weaken the light squares in my camp. If I play something like a bishop g2. Later, Houdini suggested rook to e1 was better, but I decided to trade off the light square bishops here, and he played d4. I didn't really want to give him the tempo of playing c3 takes d4, c takes d, and then queen takes d4, just getting his queen into the action in this nice center square, immediately pressurizing b2 so I just decided to play some development moves. So he plays queen check, queen d5 check, king back, rook f8. This is pretty solid stuff. There's nothing a whole lot going on here at the moment. Still some tension between those pawns, but rook to a semi-open file for him. It's okay. Just trying to improve the position of my knight here. Oh, I should point out, when he played queen d5 check here, my bishop is hanging, and I was actually should have played knight to f3, defending the bishop and blocking the check, but I didn't notice it, and he didn't notice it either. So I got a little bit of luck. I got a little lucky there. I didn't notice it until a few moves later, and I was like, "Oh, I better get my knight in there." But so lucky for me. Yeah, hanging pieces like that bishop I just sort of left hanging out there for a while. They become targets, and rightfully should have lost that bishop, but it's a 5-minute game, and people miss things. So I wanted to retake with the c pawn there because I wanted my knight eventually to have a nice home on d4, and if I retook with the queen, I'd be forced to sort of leave the queen there. I'd have to play e3 down the road, sort of to protect the knight, leave the knight having a protected square on d4. So now he decides to finally kick the bishop. So I'll just exchange it. We're down to one knight versus bishop endgame. dark square bishop endgame. And so I'm finally get e4 in. This is actually a move that you're supposed to get in the polar bear system as soon as possible. But so I'm just with tempo on the queen. He's pinning this pawn at the moment, the c3 pawn, but I don't see any tactics involving that. You can't play bishop d4 check because it's protected by the knight and all that. So actually, there was a tactic here for him to win a pawn. He's got two attackers on the c3 pawn, but he didn't notice. Or when I noticed, I played d4 to protect against that, and now he has two attackers, and I only have one defender on the e4 pawn, so he could have taken that, but he decided to go out play on the queen side. So now I'm just playing e5, looking to get some space and launch some kind of kingside attack. Yeah, just getting the rooks mobilized and stuff, looking to play, and he's looking to play on the queen side, just sort of push his advantage on that side, which he should be doing. But it turns out to be too slow. Queen over here. Now you'll notice I've decided to just absolutely sack a pawn. I mean, my c3 pawn is completely hanging, and I've decided that it's just time to go in for the attack. And it may not work, it may not be sound, and in the end, the attack wasn't sound, so to speak. I just ended up getting the win anyway because my opponent didn't defend accurately. This move is just looking to get the knight onto e4, a more aggressive square, closer to the king. And finally he notices that pawn is hanging and decides to take it. So knight onto e4, a little bit of maneuvering, and now after hanging that second pawn, check, king h1, he plays c5. So he's up 2 pawns on me right now, and decides to push his pawns down the board, and in the long run this would have won the game for him, but I decided to play actively, go for the mate here. So g4, I mean, I'm just leaving my king completely exposed, and he's just going to push his pass pawn, c4, g5, hoping to break open some lines. I'm not sure, maybe he didn't like the look of bishop takes, knight takes, pawn takes, queen takes. Maybe he thought that he would have there'd be some uncomfortable pressure with my rooks coming down and queen on his king. So he decided to pin the knight, but that gave me a chance to open the game up. He could have taken the pawn and defended his position. He's got enough time and material to defend the position, but he decided to play g6. Houdini says this is the best continuation. If he had played g takes h6 himself here, it would have been Houdini gave the evaluation a dead draw. But so I guess if I had done that, I would have had a perpetual check. Maybe. Let's see, would there have been a perpetual check there? Takes, check. Yeah. So the point being that if he plays takes here, create new variation. No, I don't have a perpetual. It's a queen here. Or did he not like the look of... oh, is there... No, that knight is pinned. Well, I'm not exactly sure, but in any case, Houdini said it was a draw. So, but he played g6. Just want to defend the knight here, just in case. Get my queen out of harm's way. He plays king h7. Now maybe he's trying to do something about this thorn pawn here. This pawn here, when it's on h6, and the pawn structure is set up sort of like this, like a fianchetto bishop setup almost. The dark squares are incredibly weak, and his dark square bishop is a little bit outside of the defense here. So, if there's some way for me to get queen f6 and then queen g7 in, that would be mate. But his bishop is stopping that at the moment. So, rook g1, I was thinking maybe there's some sacrifice potential there in the long run. Now he plays bishop c5, attacking the rook, and a move I don't really understand. I think he really needed to leave that bishop in the area to sort of defend against the dark square penetration of my queen and this pawn. around, because it's an easy enough move for me to play rook g2 here, breaking the pin on this knight, and also getting my rook out of the way of the bishop. And this was his last chance to defend against a forced mate here, because knight g5 is coming up very shortly. So he didn't notice his danger and played b4, just trying to get his pawns rolling. And from here, it's a forced mate. There are two possible continuations. The one played in the game was knight g5 check, king h8, and then queen f6 check. Only move is king g8, and then queen g7 is mate on the next move. He ran out of time before he got a chance to play king g8, so this is where the game ended. But just to show you guys, if he had instead done something like this, like after knight g4 check, taken the pawn, it's still a forced mate after queen h4 check, king only move king here, and mate on h7. This pawn here on e5 covering the f6 square, and the king's only escape route. So a nice game, an attacking game, a type of game I'm not used to playing, and by all rights, with some good defense, I would have been lost because I sacked two pawns, and these queenside pawns would have been very dangerous for me in an endgame situation, probably losing. But my opponent didn't quite defend accurately, so I got a win, and it was a good game. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and we'll see you next time.